What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. I go by Lord Ethan. I'm an Overwatch collegiate coach, and today we're going to be taking a look at some Bastion gameplay. This is going to be by a player called Colonthree, aka Ricio, and they mention that they are a Platinum 1 to D5 Bastion player. They say, surprisingly, I've gone 12-1 in win-losses for this week alone. I went from Plat 3 to Plat 1, so I'm quite happy. I'd just like some extra tips on how to deal with dives and taking more space. They sent a couple of codes and mentioned for Midtown in particular, it's a win, and they are extremely unsure of how to deal with dive-heavy compositions. Like, can they deal, they can deal with one dive at a time, but when they fight two, they can barely hold on, even with support from their teammates. We're actually going to see in this code that that they do get a lot of support from their team. In fact, it's really nice and heartwarming to see, because the way to win Overwatch is to play according to our rule sets, but our rule sets are also kind of determined by like who we're playing with, and so as long as the team's on the same page, you know, about whatever the rule is, whatever the condition is, then it's really nice to win. If it's keeping our Bastion up, then that's awesome. I want to mention here that our starting spots in Overwatch determined our ending positions here, right? So going for the engage here on this high ground is pretty risky, and you draw a lot of aggro and attention. In a game where your supports aren't looking at you, you take a ton of damage that wouldn't be mitigated, or that you would be already dead by now, right? So it's really good that our team is carrying us, but after this, we've spent all this time peeking and repaking. We've taken all of this damage. It hasn't been for any picks yet. They are pushing out of train, which is not necessarily a stronger or weaker position. There's 5 of them in here, and we get a nice pick off onto the on-run and then onto the Mercy. So again, all of our team playing for the conditions is really good, but we end up in a spot where we have fewer and fewer options remaining as time goes on, and that's exactly what we see here, right? So my comments here is, unless we take the options that that we can when they're available, we will kind of con ourselves out of how we could play later in the fight, right? So could you have taken Fire Truck, Green Room, played a different angle to have damage onto their team, right? Instead of having to corner peek and dance around the entrance to the train, in which the Doomfist is holding his block, right? Are you really getting everything done from the middle of your core when there are 360 angles on you and that you become responsible for, right? Can you shoot 360 degrees at once? We're playing the same spot multiple times in a row and ending up in what I call the I lose position of Midtown. This is just a very position to play retakes from and to live in. We have some really excellent utilities spent here to eliminate picks, but I want to be really careful of just dropping off the height, especially there to help a tank who can't necessarily be helped despite our commitment to the high ground. So we even see we drop off the high ground, we think about going back up the high ground, we stay on the low ground, end up in the I lose position, right? If the plan is to be on high ground, then we can be on high ground. If the plan is to be on low ground, then we can just be on low ground, right? So want to be really careful about ending up in the middle of the open. Now, the policy for me is with ults, if you have it, use it. You should be ulting that Hanzo. Should have ulted the Hanzo as soon as you've seen him, especially since you're playing in the exact same position as you have been. As you play in the same spot over time, they're going to adjust their playstyle against you. That's for everyone, but especially for dives in particular, they will come after you, right? So if you're going to play the same place several consecutive times, then at least do things differently. If you're going to do things differently, then you can play the same way, right? You can hold on to the ult if you're going to move somewhere else, but if you're going to stay there, then you should probably just ult when you have it, when you use, because you're going to get pushed out of train by a team that is more equipped to deal with you because you've already been there before and they already messed that up. They're going to say, what can we do to fix that? And they're going to come after you again. Is going to work, right? So really want to be careful about that. I do really like the mechanics that were the picks that we're getting, but we are only using 20% of the map. I want us to use 80% of the map. We've only seen the same 2 positions played this entire time, and my question ends up being, what makes you think they won't have an answer for you by the 3rd time, right? So I also want to mention it's interesting to see the Bastion ult go off there, and you're not looking for the Hanzo, right? You've missed your opportunity to kill him, and you end up in a position again. If we don't take our options when they reveal themselves to us, then we run out of options later on. You miss your chance to ult the Hanzo, and then therefore you end up left with Kiri, Moira, Freya, Doomfist, none of which are great Bastion ult targets, right? And honestly, at that point, you should be ulting not for picks but for cooldowns, right? To force resources out of them, right? We drop off the height once again. I'm not a big fan. We swing really wide for that Doomfist as well. We end up in a position where we're just out in the middle of the open, and for once we don't have every single cooldown being sunk into us, which by the way is a pretty irresponsible way to take this fight, but that's that's a conversation for a different day, right? Instead, it's interesting because you're out in the middle of the open, like kind of on a rotation there. We should just start from green room, right? If we're going to play differently, or we can just stay on the high ground instead of dropping off arbitrarily, right? So, part of the reason, and again, this goes back to like they're going to have a response for you by the third time, right? So part of the reason that we are susceptible to dive is because we're not changing our approach every single fight, every single reset, every single staging opportunity, every single pre-fight setup phase. We are spending in the exact same spots, generally doing the same things, right? It makes it to where it's very easy for damage to be dealt onto us at inconvenient times, right? So where you die there, this is interesting pathing, by the way. I thought was interesting. I put in my notes that you should just keep walking, and then also don't charge the Doomfist if you've decided not to. I really do like the way that you use this Mizuki ult, though. This was really excellent. But it was interesting to see you change your trajectory there against the Doomfist ult here. We're looking to build our ult so that we can use it as quickly as possible, right? And so here we can use it, but we generally are playing 2 out in the open. Even this is 2 out in the open. We're still close to our walls, corners, covers, but we're still open enough in the doorway. You saw it just for just a frame there, where the Doomfist could actually still punch us out of our ult, right? Which is a little bit unfortunate. So part of the reason that we're able to take damage at these inopportune times, such as when your supports didn't have the resources to keep you up on first point, or when you don't have the Suzu to mitigate the punch, and you have a ton of follow-up damage on you afterwards, is because we are in the same spot, right? As we've been, my rule is 8 to 12 seconds that you have to play any one position, and then you have to change your position. You have to rotate, you have to kite, you have to move in or out, and by the way, we're going to talk about this. It's always better in than out, but not necessarily right here, right? I want to remark on Bastion and how he is a ranged hit scan DPS, like high output DPS unit, and so I don't understand the need to close the distance onto our targets. I put this in my notes for later, but I'm gonna ask it now. Is Bastion a melee hero? Did I miss something in the latest patch? No, play your ranges, play your distance. I haven't actually seen you play at all at the ranges where Bastion is still incredibly lethal, but is like a little bit safer, right? So, you're going to get ulted there, and that's no big deal. Like, you're just going to take a ton of pressure and damage here. And I like that you've gotten this healing perk, although part of the struggle that I have with this healing perk is the fact that I think that it only allows you to stay up for longer so that you just take more damage over time, right? Instead of a cooldown that 2 to 3 shot squishies who all have teleport mobility cooldowns, right? So you have your high output, like sustained damage from your shift right now, your assault configuration, but really it's possibly worth considering getting the tank form, since everyone is going to TP, Suzu, block, dance, bounce away from you, right? You're going to end up on the Doom. I really like the tracking here, and you have your ult, so you need to use it. Get around the corner here. You walk up and out into the open, and so it's going to leave you susceptible to follow-up, which is exactly what happens here. The Onron scouts you beforehand. You were also walking up instead of just sitting there at the corner in your safe position, on your safe angle, holding your space and playing your spacing in your range. It's interesting because your need to catch up and like walk forward to land your shots against targets reliably also ends up meaning that you lose the opportunity to cut off and the kiting, what is her name? The kiting Onron, right? Now, play close to your walls, corners, and covers. We're out in the open here, and then we're also going to start getting really tunnel-visioned here on the Doomfist. There is a half HP Onron in front of the car that you should be shooting, and if you're going to nade yourself in response to the Doomfist ult, then you should be nading in rather than away from your team. Now, ultimately, we're probably going to lose this fight anyways, but at the end of the day, you really don't want to be distracted by the things that you don't need to be distracted by. You want to make sure that you're committing yourself onto the conditions that will help move these fights forward, and for you, that's going to be avoiding the Doomfist meteor strike and eventually dying, but hopefully after trading by leaping cart against the Cass and going for an assault configuration, whether or not you have the one that, the cannon that 2 or 3 shots, right? Here again, we see it as well. I don't usually rewind in these, but we see that instead of nading yourself in and going where your team is, concentrating on the point, you see how, like, there's only 2 of you to die here, but you're the only one dying to the Doom and the Onron, right, while the rest of your team is fighting, right? So again, it's always safer in, or always better in than out, and that's part of what sets us back. But again, that's not going to be at all times, right? In means that you're safe. You're on an angle, right? We walked out of this door, right, instead of going left or right. Sorry, you can't go left here, but you can go right side, right? And going right side would have put you against their Cassidy, right? As opposed to their Doomfist and Onron. So what we're going to see here on the attacking phase is kind of a repeat of that, where we're really a little bit too close to our team, right? And we're playing Orisa kind of brawly style compositions and generally playing pretty close to them. So it's no surprise that you're close to your team, and that puts you in proximity to them. And who else are they going to want to look at besides the Bastion, who's going to charge all of our blocks and be susceptible to all of our cooldowns, right? So, in general, again, it's always better in than out, but that means on angles and safe positions around walls, corners, covers, where you can see your team, you can pinch with your team, you can kite from your team. You're near health packs, which are map control, one of the 2 core principles of Overwatch, and with timing as well, which is the other core principle. You do want to make sure that you're timing your angling, or at the very least, not spending so much time in the middle of your team. Remember, can you really do as much as you want to as Bastion if you're having to spin around to shoot 360 angles, or can you do a little bit more if you're just keeping to the straight and narrow at a crossfire with your team, where you can all get damage from a couple of different angles and get information on different angles, right? It's because your Tracer goes low ground here that she would be able to scout the Doomfist, right? I like this pressure. I like this damage. Be careful about taking too much damage in this position, especially too early on. Your supports aren't really beholden to you and your needs at this time, right? You guys are looking to push through the objective, and so you want to make sure that you're not a drain on your support resources, so I really appreciate the fact that you're playing safe here. Now, this is a little bit too samey for me here as well. I think that against Doom and Junk, who love to do group AoE damage on enemies, it's interesting to see how remarkably close you are standing to your team here. It does put you in some really nice damage ranges, and again, your mechanics are actually really nice, but it's the position, the spacing, the pathing, and some of the outedness, as well as the sameness that is disruptive to me here. Playing out your timers and letting the Junkrat peek you is really excellent, but you really could just have bounced into Firehouse onto the 2nd floor, played on top of the fire truck, tried to draw aggro by being somewhere out in the open, so that then one of your teammates can get a pick on an angle, right? And so I definitely want us to be a little more creative with how we're playing, where we're playing, when we're playing these certain spots. I do love DPS moving the objective. It is my sincere belief that the only role that's good for moving the point is the DPS, since tanks and supports are so goated in this game, and it's worth it for them to move up and take space. But if you're going to have people playing the objective, then it's worth just running up to the high ground here as well, right? Your Moira, your Sigma are on the point. You really don't need everyone to move the objective because you're not looking to move it quickly, right? You just want to get it moved, and you do have some nice opportunities for some damage here, although you're not nearly close enough. You're bouncing from left wall to right wall instead of just holding your angles. You have your ultimate as well, which means we should be letting a rip here on our ultimate, and that would probably help us keep from getting jumped by the cast, because you could scout with your ultimate, right, set up on the left side and then move forward, and you would see the cast walking up to you. Boom, that's an easy ultimate opportunity. It's amazing that you don't die here to the Doom, or the Ana, or the Deadeye, right? But now you guys finally have the right idea to start setting up to go high ground. Are we going to drop on the low ground here? This is no good, right? So we finally have the right idea, but it comes a little bit too late. It costs our sticky nade, and we're ulting probably in the later window, and we're going to end up again on ulting a target that we don't really want to be ulting. Don't charge the punch there. He has his meteor strike, so you die here on the objective anyways. And again, really all that we needed to do was just get onto height, drop down, or trigger our assault configuration from the high ground, pressure their squishies backwards, and then drop down. We're with our team, and we're less susceptible to the Doomfist. We're not isolated on the high ground. See how you're in the right place, but it's not the right time, because the right time to be on high ground there was earlier in this engagement, right? So I definitely, and we had seen all of them on the low ground as well. Sorry, I just read this in my notes, is where you had seen their cast, their Doom, their Onron, their Ana. You had seen all of them low ground while you were duking it out on the low ground from angles that you aren't going to as easily or find damage instances or meaningful ones at that. And so we know that if we see all of them on the low ground, there's no one on high ground, right? So we should know that high ground is uncontested. That's the space that we can go and play, right? Be careful about counterplaying the Doom there, right? When he meteor strikes you as well, in that previous fight, you can just nade over his head, right? And go from there. See my other videos and my other VOD reviews. It is always better in than out. But see how he's on you, and we are just kind of feeding into him and the way that he wants us to play. Now, here we're really just going to die no matter what. They nano, go for the on-run ultimate, and then slam down on your team. But it's interesting to consider that they get one less with the on-run, with the nano-boosted on-run ultimate if you are not on the high ground, right? So it's not even necessarily about winning in that instance. It's just about not being the one to die to the same instance of damage as someone else on or the rest of your team. Now here we're jumping in, which I actually really like, right? Not jumping out towards the wall, the corner that we would get stuck in, right? But in with our team. We're closing distance on our targets again. You don't need to do that. Bastion has a gun. You can just shoot him there. And it's really unfortunate. We didn't start high ground. We didn't stage high ground, so he gets scouted, and then we get distracted by him instead of going in to set up for this next fight, right? Over here on this side of the map, we end up dying to the Cassidy and are going to have to respawn. So going high ground, being proactive, right? You don't if there are people moving the objective, then you can opt out of moving the objective in favor of going to your next pre-fight setup position. And honestly, at the end of the day, go high ground here. Go high ground here. Set up with your team, stage with them, right? As long as you guys aren't going to be taking the same instances of damage here all at the same time, then I guess I'm okay with you guys kind of stacking up on top of each other here. You have your ultimate, so you want to let it rip here, but because you started on the main angle, you got scouted on the main angle, which means you're easier to mark here on the right side. Imagine if instead you just walk up that hallway that we see here, right, and you just start on the right side. That way you're not scouted on main angle, and you're able to just pop out unmarked from the right side with your ult, with your shift, with whatever, right? You get a nade, and you don't have to deal with the Doomfist the entire time too, because he's not going to be playing in those hallways. Where do you think Doomfist is going to be playing? We end up with a really tough ultimate. I actually didn't even get the chance to see that in my notes. I think that you had probably a little more time to scout out some picks. You want to be looking for the Cass, the Ana, and the Onron, or at least if you're going to go for the Doom and the carry, you want to force cooldowns. But if you're going to force cooldowns, then you want to pull the ult at a time when forcing those cooldowns is valuable, and pulling our ult from spawn isn't really a valuable use for that. It's possible, I think that you were trying to contribute to that fight, but really the biggest, oh, we're not on high ground again, please. Really the biggest contributions that we can make to that fight are not dying by playing in positions where it is easier for them to kill us. Now, we end up having a really nice a little attacking phase here, and unfortunate that's a really nice Suzu actually, because I really like that name. See how we're on top of the objective though? With a team that is also on the point, you can honestly just be on high ground, playing your ranges, be on top of the bus behind you, this one right here, right, or on top of the bus stop. We're here at this, I call them impotent angles, which is an angle that you really can't do much from, right? You get forced back onto that ramp leaning into the valley for even just a little bit, and that's not a big deal to be down there for a little bit in the context of a fight that you're going to end up winning, but it's really kind of tough to do anything from that point. So if your team isn't winning as well, then you aren't contributing to advantages that you can establish. And at the end of the day, Overwatch is all about playing our advantages. The whole of second point, we got to see us play the same way on the same part of the map, pathing through the same spots, right? So enough of that. Off angle, play different angles, play different timings. Well, play on the same timeline as your team, right? Go in when your team is going in, but you don't have to do it from the same position, and you definitely don't have to close space onto your targets by moving forward to land reliable damage, right? You don't have to walk forward out of this choke point to land damage onto the Cass or to have angles on that Kirika, right? Again, is Bastion a melee character? You have ult here, and I understand that, we don't want to blow all of our ultimates before we have the opportunity to capture this objective, but I think that what we're going to find, again, is that you don't have your best ultimate here. Let's see. We found the Cass, and yeah, the timing for our ultimate ends up being on a timeline where Kiri is coming out, fresh out of spawn, has Suzu for the Cassidy, right? Isn't that unfortunate? Is it possible? And again, this would be worth going and looking at in the context of like a full VOD review. But if we ult just when we have it, do we have the opportunity to stagger the Ana as the Kiri is respawning, right? Or to do a little extra damage onto the Onron, who our team was pushing, who I don't think had died. Maybe I'm mistaken. Do you have an opportunity to ult the Doomfist so that he's compelled to punch in while his team is respawning, right? These are all... Oh my god, I don't have streamer mode enabled so you guys can hear my Discord sounds. In any case, you guys are gonna check your Discords and be like, who's joining my calls? Who's pinging me? Who's tuning into my stream? I'm not even streaming right now, huh? Hello? Because we're playing main angles, because we're closing distance, because we are playing the same positions in the same ways several consecutive times, which should work in the games that our team is willing to play the same way. But like, if you end up with me on your team, I promise I'm never going to be in the same place as I was in the previous consecutive fight, because I don't want to get counterplayed on the basis of that red team knows where I play if they saw me where I played last fight. Does that make sense, right? So I like starting things differently. Now, I like the perk that you've picked here to help deal with some of these TTKs that are troubling, right? They have immortalities, mobility cooldowns, fades, immortalities, right? So it's nice to get the ability that kind of two-taps some of these characters. And this is a nice angle, nice position. Be careful. This is what I was going to say, is because we do all of these things, right? We take so much willful damage that we don't have to take. I hopefully mentioned it once before. It's damage taken timings is what I call it. And just the idea is, when are you taking damage, right? Because if I'm taking damage at the same time as my horse is going critical and both of my supports are looking for them, or looking at my horse, then that is a bad time to take damage, right? As opposed to a better time to take damage, which is when my team is able to help me, when I'm the sole object of their attention, that is all of red team looking only at me, right? I'm good to take damage there because I don't have a choice, right? Besides to take enough damage. And if I'm the only one getting looked at, then all of my team is free to do whatever they want, to heal me as much as they want, or damage whoever my threats are, right? And it's interesting. I wonder if on re-examination of this replay code, then I wonder if I would find that it is interesting kind of who you are shooting at different times. I wonder if there is an opportunity for us to contribute a little bit better to certain pressures onto certain targets, right? We end up getting caught up with the Doomfist quite a bit, and I can't really blame us for that. Doomfist is doing a lot to put himself in our faces, although we could be starting in better positions. I mentioned at the very beginning of the VOD, and I did get the chance to expound, but where you start in Overwatch determines where you end, either when the fight resolves and you haven't died, or after you have died and the fight resolves unfavorably for your team, unless you guys clutch up, right? Or when you just die in the context of a fight, just whether you win or lose, right? And so if Overwatch is a cumulative game, then we have to understand that the decisions we make early on will affect all of the options and outcomes that we have later on in the match. Shoot the targets who are wide. I think that we're a little too committed onto the angle there when we have a really free Zen who is rotating, right? I really like that we didn't move up to land those shots, and now it's just a matter of shoot the tank. But see how we're pathing through the choke on top of our team, right? We should be getting group flashed, group fire struck. There is a whole building in here to take with map control. A health pack existing here with a doorway on this side of the choke this close to your position, and you're going to tell me in good faith that's not a position that Aaron Keller and Jeff Kaplan and all of the designers of Overwatch wouldn't tell you to play, didn't literally design for you to play. And we saw this position get used exactly how many times by you over the course of this entire 4-round match. Yeah. Eureka moment. The crown is in the bathtub, and the water is overflowing. Let the knowledge pour forth onto thee, Colonthree, that you have to get creative, stop taking so much willful damage, and by starting in different positions each time. The way to counter the dive is to be ahead of the dive, and you're never going to be ahead of the dive if you are starting from the same position, getting the same scouting information, taking the same damage from the same targets, getting the same support from your team, or when really the fights are going to be different each time, right? Should you be playing different fights the exact same way? No, absolutely not, right? It should always be it should be consistent, right? And that is consistently inconsistent, consistently changing, consistently flexible. And we see a little too much rigidity in our playstyle, too close to our team, too eager to move forward onto our targets, too undisciplined to use 80% of the map instead of the 20% that we confine ourselves to. And so while it is awesome that you are winning most of your games at the start of this season, it is what you will find holds you back is the fact that soon you will start taking encumbersome damage from all 5 of red team, and your team is actually not going to be playing to pocket the bastion next time, right? And that's going to lead that's going to lead to a really, really challenging game, when really what you want to do is, open up your options. We saw several consistent team fights where you were really stacked upon by 5 of them, right? But really that's just because you're playing right smack dab in the middle of the map where it is easiest to get to, right? Imagine if you start in in Firehouse. Imagine if you start in this room. Imagine if after getting pressured out by 5 people moving through train, you just jump onto the fire truck and be ready to assault anyone who comes after you and to drop after you take damage, right? To not end up in the I lose position. That's for a long VOD review that we can go into this one. But just take my word for it. This is the I lose position of Midtown. King's Row also has an I lose position. There's a couple of really notable I lose positions. So anyways, you want to get creative. You want to spend a little less time in the core of your team and a little more time finding angles, being unmarked, and honestly, the aim is really great. It's going to look really bad. It's going to look really, really, really good, even better from from high ground positions at times where it's good to be on high ground. And these are also the times, by the way, that it's good to be on high ground are also the times before it is good to drop, right? So you start on high ground at a good time, and then you drop off of high ground at a good time, right? Doing the right thing in Overwatch generally leads you to the next right thing to do. It's awesome. I love Overwatch, and I'm so thankful to Rizio, aka Colonthree, for submitting this replay code. If you guys enjoyed the content today and found it insightful or valuable or entertaining, then be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so that you guys can be notified of when I drop more videos, and leave a comment for engagement's sake or to leave some positively oriented feedback. We're not going to do weirdness in the comments. For you guys who have watched, and for all of those who are submitting codes, thank you guys so much for participating in this endeavor that I am so excited to embark upon, and I'm looking forward to the next opportunity to look at an Overwatch VOD. It's gonna be pretty soon. It's gonna be tomorrow. LOL. Guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, remember to be good to each other, be fair to yourselves, and I will see you guys next time.